Hello, welcome back to Big Anime Talkies. I'm your host, Jason Hon, and it's been a little bit since we've recorded an episode. We've got a lot of exciting anime to talk about. Today, we're going to focus on Dragon Ball Daima. Episode 7 just aired, so we've got a lot of stuff to talk about with that. And the new hit anime that's kind of taken everyone by storm, except it's not really surprising manga readers because they've known it's fantastic for a while now, but DanDaDan has become probably one of the biggest hits this fall, and we're going to talk about that and episode 8, which just aired the other day. And the last thing we'll probably chat about is One Piece, which has been on a lot of kind of shaky ground lately. There's been going on breaks. The anime jumped backwards. We'll have a good amount to talk about that. The latest chapter that released for that was 1131. But we'll be talking about it in that order. But again, I am Jason Hon, writer for ScreenRant.com and content creator on YouTube and stuff like that. But today I am joined by some awesome guests who will help me talk about these series. First of all, we've got Stephen Blackburn, who is also another Screen Rant writer and has been a guest on the podcast a few times. How are you doing today, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing well. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a while, but I'm happy to be back.
Been a while. Yeah, it's good to hear from you again. I'm glad you could take a break from your obsession over Sonic the Hedgehog to talk about some anime and manga with us today. And another buddy from Screen Rant that we've got who's going to be joining us to talk about Daima and DanDaDan and maybe a little bit of One Piece is the editor-in-chief of the anime section of Screen Rant, Mr. Evan Mullicane. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, it's good to have you, bud. I think we had you on a couple episodes ago, and it's good to have you back. And then our final guest, another returning fantastic author, or content creator and writer on Screen Rant as well, and one of my favorite people to talk One Piece with lately is Merlyn D. Souza. How are you?
Hello, it's so nice to be back. I'm so excited to talk about One Piece again, even though there's not been a lot to talk about lately.
Well, I think
Totally
that
fair.
because we haven't talked about it in a couple of weeks, we have a lot of stuff that has happened that we could definitely I don't know if we'll say complain about, but we have some topics to bring up about it that's a nice little teaser for later. But Merlyn, please don't bring your pitchforks out yet. But she's one of the few people in the world who hasn't watched a lot of Dragon Ball, so she'll probably be chiming in a little bit later once we get into DanDaDan and definitely One Piece, obviously. But I think we'll go ahead and dive right into it, just because it just aired, so everyone's pretty excited to talk about Dragon Ball Daima episode 7, except Merlyn. She's not excited. She thinks it sucks.
Oh, wow.
She's never said that. All the Dragon Ball fans, just calm down. Yeah, I've been really enjoying the Dragon Ball Daima anime. I feel like it's like the closest thing we've gotten to like a true sequel to Dragon Ball Z. I know GT and Super have come out and they each have their awesome stuff in it and following, and I just like everyone else was watching Super every week and getting really excited, and Daima feels like that again. Like just as soon as the awesome intro starts, it feels like I'm a kid again watching Dragon Ball. But so much of the like story beats of Daima feel more Dragon Ball E than I think GT or Super have ever done. And especially with it taking place almost immediately after the Buu arc, this just it's felt every step of the way more Toriyama than Dragon Ball has been in a long time, and that's just my take on it so far. But this newest episode was a lot of fun. We got to see, I think, one of my favorite bits I'll bring up before I definitely want to hear other people's thoughts on Daima in general so far. But I really like seeing the Supreme Kai Shin get to fight. He's consistently been a character ever since he was introduced in the Buu arc as like, oh yeah, he's strong. He's really strong, but we never really get to see him do much. And that's kind of a big pet peeve of mine in a lot of storytelling is people saying they're strong but not showing that they're strong. Boruto is terrible at that, but it's one of those things where show don't tell, and we got to see that in this episode of Daima, and that was really cool. But I've got a few other things about this newest episode, but I am very anxious to hear from you guys on what you think of Daima, just in general as a whole. Steven, did you want to go first?
We can have Evan go first, just because, yeah, you'll see why. Well, let's have Evan go first.
Okay, fair.
No, I'm curious. No, thank you, Stephen. I do have a lot of thoughts. A couple things I wanted to touch on that you had mentioned. One, the kind of what you said about how this feels more Dragon Ball-y. I agree, but what I would add is this feels more Toriyama than Super or GT or anything Dragon Ball post the end of Z. Because
Mhm.
one thing that I really find really interesting about Toriyama is everyone's perception of him and his storytelling and his art is very frozen with Dragon Ball, with the end of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. However, he grew a lot as an artist and a storyteller after that. I mean, you look at what he was doing in Sandland, and it's very different. Like, it has a very different texture than what you would see in his work with Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. And that's not to say that that was bad or whatever, just that it was, he had grown, he'd evolved. And I think we're seeing a lot more of that in Daima, a lot more of his more refined storytelling sensibilities. I say more refined as like there's fart jokes and poop jokes in Daima. But it's Toriyama, that's what you're gonna get. So that's what I would say about that. I also wanted to add, I think that you really see Toriyama's touch in this because what I really admire about Daima versus Super, and I like Super, I'm not trying to denigrate it too much, but one thing that I think Super kind of has a problem with is it feels very much so like let's play the hits. You like Goku and Vegeta, you're gonna get a lot more Goku and Vegeta. Even Superhero, which was great, was still, giving fans kind of what they wanted. Fans had wanted more Gohan, fans had wanted more Piccolo. So I think what sets Daima apart, and you can even see this in the initial fan reception to it, when Daima was first announced, a lot of fans were like, "What? This isn't the continuation of Super. Goku's a kid again." Like, a lot of people were really upset about it, but I think it shows Toriyama's strength as a storyteller because he can see areas that the original Dragon Ball could expand on, like, for instance, Shin. Shin is a very interesting character with a lot going on, but nobody was really asking for more Shin. But you watch Daima, and Jason, you're absolutely right. You're like, "Oh, this is a great character. I definitely want to see him and Goku interact more." I think they have such a very good repertoire, like very good chemistry. They bounce off each other in a very good way that feels like they're very, very different characters while still feeling very friendly, and so it creates a really fun dynamic. And I think that's the mark of what a good storyteller Toriyama is, that he could recognize the potential for Shin and expand that with Daima. I've always said that a good storyteller will give fans what they want. A great one will give fans what they didn't know they wanted. And I think we're seeing a lot of that in Daima. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's perfect. I still have my, little nitpicks and criticisms and everything. But I think you can definitely tell this was something Toriyama worked on and that he cared about.
I completely agree, and I think it's one of those things where everyone has, as you said, their perception of what Dragon Ball and what Toriyama are, or what their work represented. And the more series that I indulged in, and the more interviews that I read with mangakas that I respect and love their work of, you tend to find out that almost none of them are into, how strong can I make this character, and how cool, like power scaling, I feel like misses the point entirely. And mangakas are never ever, well, I would say, I don't know about never, but they're never really thinking about that. They want to tell a fun, interesting story with these characters. And I feel like Daima is almost all of that just wrapped up in it's the humor, it's the adventure, it's all that stuff that Toriyama seems to love doing, and anything that you've read, you brought up Sandland, that he's done after Dragon Ball wrapped up. It is that, like, he just loves doing the adventure with quirky characters who can do some cool stuff, but it's not. It seemed like the influence of his editors are the things that kind of introduced the whole like space opera and a legendary race of warriors, and this whole thing just all that didn't really feel like Toriyama, while the humor and the adventures is what I think Toriyama is more synonymous with. And not saying that none of that's going to happen in Daima, especially a couple episodes ago, we got the whole tease of, oh, this new little thing will fuse two warriors together. Just like, okay, well, we're not going to introduce that and not use it.
Right.
I kind of am hoping it's the no-brainer thing, and of course, what Evan's final point on that is an author, a good author, gives fans what they want, and an even better one gives them things that they didn't know they wanted. And how great would it be if Goku uses those and doesn't fuse with Vegeta, but fuses with somebody else?
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I'm like 75% sure he's gonna fuse with Shin. This whole series is about Goku's relationship with Shin and developing that. So I
That'd be
would
cool.
be a little bit surprised if that wasn't where they were headed. I think honestly it would be. I personally would be disappointed if it just if they just use that to give us like Vegeta or Gogeta or whatever. Those are both great introductions to the series. Have no problem with them, but like if you're gonna tease like, oh, a new method of fusion, then it's like then let's have it be with a new character.
If it was with Shin, that would have so much payoff, especially with the whole like, we know that that's possible with the Goku Black storyline. Like
Mhm. Oh, I
Goku's,
hadn't even thought of that.
yeah, his technically Goku's body fused with a Kai in that one, and it had pretty decent results except for the whole immortal part. But yeah, so that's really exciting. I think Daima is doing a lot more right than it's doing wrong, but of course, I too agree it's not perfect. Like, there's a lot of bits where it's like, okay, anytime something has to happen, then our transportation needs to break down, and did we really need this demon world to be so large that we're constantly breaking down and going back and forth to that sort of thing? But that's kind of one of my few nitpicks, really.
One of my things, and it was in this latest episode that I was like, all right, come on, you wasted our time. Is we've spent like 3 episodes now, I think, with Bulma working on the spaceship to get to the demon world, and it's like, oh, okay, this is a good explanation for why they can't get there yet, and then they're gonna fix it, and then they're gonna get there, and then Hybis just comes along and is like, "Oh no, get in my spaceship." And it's like, well, then what was the point of all that time spent
Right.
with
I
Bulma fixing the ship? I feel like you've wasted my time.
Yeah, I was getting ready to be really mad, but I'm glad that they explained it. The whole like, oh, Goku's just standing behind them. Like,
Yeah,
how did he? But then they're like, oh no, he can use instant teleportation and just teleport wherever there's a key signature, which brings up another one of my favorite bits in this. They demonstrate that is a thing. They remind people that is a thing, and then literally minutes later, they're like, oh hey, Vegeta and Bulma, they're here. Do we want to wait for them? Oh no, I mean, I do have this ability that I could just teleport to any key signature that I can detect, and I would definitely be able to detect Vegeta. But I think Goku solely didn't do that because he wants to go fight the Tamagi. I think I just want to call them Tamagotchis.
I had
Goku
the same
wants
thought.
to. I think he purposely didn't do that, and I don't know if that'll be a dialogue line later. But I love the whole idea of Goku still is just being Goku and he wants to go fight strong guys, and I like the little bit of lore that we got in here too, that the Tamagotchis are so strong that even Deborah was like he couldn't deal with them, and I'm kind of enjoying like the little bit more focus on Deborah. I feel like he was just kind of a side character during the Majin Buu arc. I mean, he was just introduced as like, oh, he's the king of the demon realm, and you're like, whoa, that's kind of a big title. That sounds awesome. And then he just kind of, he died, and we didn't get much more into that. And I'm hoping that we learn more about his character. And oh, that reminds me, I've got a pitch. I was gonna throw out my boss at Screen Rant about I think that it would be really interesting if Daima acknowledged that Deborah looks exactly like the same character in Daima or in Sandland, and it could be the opportunity for them to possibly bridge the two series together by being like, oh no, it is the same character, and maybe at the end Beelzebub will show up and be like, oh, I guess I'll be the king of this place now, or it takes place in the far future or past of Sandland. But that could be interesting. I just don't know if Japanese properties don't seem to be obsessed like American properties with combining their franchises together. So we'll see.
Well, they did that with they did that with wow, I'm
Dr.
blanking.
Slump?
No. Well, I mean, they did do that, but
Yes.
a completely different franchise. Yeah, Fire. No, what am I thinking of?
Fire Force?
Yeah, was it Fire Force? Fire Force and Soul Eater. Like those worlds are
Oh,
connected.
right. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. I forgot about that. Yeah, there was like that was like the big thing, and it's like, oh yeah, they actually are connected. They're in the same world or whatever. And didn't they do that with Bleach and his other one, the witches?
Yeah, his
Burn the Witch,
follow-up.
I think.
Yeah, Burn the
Yeah.
Witch. Like I think they're like in the same world as well. Yeah.
Yeah. We ran a few articles like, oh, Bleach is like stealth or spiritual sequel or whatever, and it's technically that's accurate.
Well, Steven, I know you've kind of said some things in chat once or twice about not exactly loving Daima, and I think you were saying that you even like some things in GT better. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Daima.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be quiet mostly just because I was enjoying your conversation, and I like being more positive about Dragon Ball than negative. But yeah, I mean, I could talk about some of the things. Like, I don't want to get too in depth or go like, oh my god, blah. But yeah, like I'm just pretty unhappy with it overall. I mean, like with the whole, I mean, I can start listing things like the whole Shin and Goku. Like, I get what you guys are saying, like giving something that we never knew we wanted. The only problem is like the important thing about their relationship previously and what would make it work for me is like their whole dynamic was always like Supreme Kai Shin. He is like the king of the Kais and what have you. And Goku has always never had like a reverence for people who in that position. Like I'm already forgetting the guy's name, Zenmo or whatever from Super. And like even the first time he met Supreme Kai, like in Z, he was actually like as soon as Vegeta came and imagine Vegeta came and started killing everyone in the stands, like he was like, Shin, transport me somewhere where like I can fight Vegeta without hurting anyone. And Shin is like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. And Goku was gonna kill him. Like he's like, are you sure? Like he actually like put like a Kai beam on him, like ready to shoot it at him. Like so he's never respected him. So it would have been a really cool dynamic, like if Goku had revered him, and then having to deal with the fact, oh, he's now a kid. Like, what's that whole thing look like? Like having to deal with the fact that, which kind of like going back with GT, and GT could have done this, but didn't follow through on it. Like the whole interesting dynamic of how Pan, who is the granddaughter of Goku, is now suddenly traveling with her grandfather, who was like the patriarch of the family, and now he's a child like younger than her. Like that's a very interesting dynamic. Like why would you transfer Goku into a kid and then put him in a position with someone where he's traveling with them and they don't have much of a relationship? I don't know. Like I think it would work really well in the end if Goku ends up respecting Shin Sama a lot more afterwards, being like, wow, you're actually a really a god that I can, or a Kai that I can respect. But the only problem with that is that we haven't had that type of relationship with them in Daima, at least. Like, there hasn't been like Goku disrespecting him at all. It's just been kind of like they've been interacting like how they normally do. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's with the Shin and Goku relationship, and and then I'm also like comparing it to GT, and like even though GT has had its problems, like the story that this is pretty much emulating, like, and like it seems like that it's happening throughout this series. Like Toriyama was giving shout outs to all different things, like not just GT but aspects of the original series. And um but like, so like this first story in the first few episodes, like when we went into that village where we saw the I forgot their names, where the henchmen are like forcing the people to pay up. um
Yeah, with their life force.
yeah, like, and so that was basically the same thing as in GT, on GT's first planet, Emeka, where they go to that planet and there's people being exploited for their money as well, which made them like crazy for money and swindling everyone who came on their planet. And so that was cool. But like the problem is, like, and then I'm comparing it, is that this story, like, they made you care more about the fact that the people in Emeka and GT were being swindled, because we actually interacted with the people who were being swindled. Like there was that old couple that Goku, Trunks, and Pan go to after they run away from the hotel when they were being exploited. They go and run into this this old couple with children, and their house ends up being taken away from them while they're there because they don't have enough money to pay. I forgot his name, Don something. So like we already had, like, so there were these people being exploited. Goku and his friends like see them, like the like elderly couple who are like the most vulnerable. Like they're like, oh no, now we don't have a home to take care of our children. Our children are now in the rain. And Goku's even mad. He's like, hey, you want me to go beat up these guys for you? And so like you're really invested in it. And now we're getting that same story here, except now we're completely removed from the people who are being overcome, like we're being exploited. Like we are traveling with like a princess who is above all that, so she's never really suffered from it. um I don't know, it just feels like it's not getting it's not doing what GT did. And like even also too, like with the original Dragon Ball, and you can see it too with how much it influenced One Piece, is like wherever, like a lot of places where Goku would go when he's searching for the Dragon Balls, he would get involved with the people that he went to, and he had to solve their problems. And it was exciting. It made like the search for the Dragon Balls more fun. Just because like it wasn't just, oh, I'm going to search for this Dragon Ball. Oh, this person's having a problem, I'm going to go help them, or something like that. And with this, it's just we're not getting that. And so it feels like it is following Dragon Ball more, but GT feels like it was more true to the original Dragon Ball, because there were those little issues that Goku and his friends had to deal with in addition to the Dragon Balls. But that's just me. And I feel like I'm just ranting now.
Oh no,
no worries.
Yeah, I gotta disagree with you though, because I do feel like I feel like Daima is doing a better job of it, because GT had those, and it helped you care about these extra characters while also making the world feel like built and alive. But I think Daima is still doing that. It just doesn't have the payoff quite as soon as GT gave it. Especially with this newer episode, with like revealing that the princess has that ring around her neck, and it's something that everybody that they've used to like almost enslave their people. And
I might add to that actually in a second once you're done there.
oh hey, we've got Mr. JR joining us, another Screen Rant writer. Hey, good to see you, man, or good to hear from you.
Mr. Guestifer himself, yes. Yeah, I actually really wanted you actually segued into that perfectly because the Magic Collars adds a dynamic that I've been really fascinated by, specifically involving Shin and his role kind of being expanded in this series. Because like the thing about GT that isn't emulated, I guess, by Daima is Shin's role, the idea of him potentially being the savior to the third demon world, because the travel between worlds has been restricted, like years before the events of the series, and Shin's like this missing link who's able to tap into his blind powers to kind of reverse what's suspected to be Arinsu's invention, subjugating them. So I think it's an interesting way to kind of recontextualize his role within the series beyond just like being the guy who oversees the training or being the supreme Kai of the universe, but also just like not being combat oriented, but contributing to the adventure and the intrigue aspects. Like he suspects Glorio. He's able to still take down gendarmerie planes despite his depowered state. Like there's a lot to kind of enjoy, even just in the exact latest episode, because Pansy shows direct appreciation for his contributions. And yeah, like as Evan brought up, as Steven and yourself, Jason, have all brought up, it's just like there's a lot to appreciate about how Shin's been kind of re-explored with this series. I just wanted to say that.
I'm
No,
liking.
absolutely.
Well, just to go off of that, I mean, that's one of the things I really am appreciating. Ironically, it's. I won't go there. I do like the whole backstories when we're learning what we're learning about Shin and his people. How they are non-binary, how they were growing from trees and whatnot. Like the backstory and stuff like that is really fun. It's kind of like, I guess I'm kind of coming at it like that's how when I was reading One Piece, that's what I enjoyed. Like I didn't enjoy the story as much as I enjoyed the backstories, like the lore and stuff. And it feels like that's my reaction with Daima, is that the story itself, where they're traveling, is not enrapturing me. It's what I'm being told about the lore that we've all wanted to hear about. So it's I don't know. It's interesting, but you are right. Like I do like that aspect of Shin. Like we're able to explore more about his background, which we should get more of it, because I mean he is a supreme Kai, and it is interesting being able to see it. Like he's a god now, but he started like he was on the demon world. He grew up like everyone else. I don't know. It is interesting. It humanizes. Oh, I shouldn't say humanizes him, but like it kind of does. Like it kind of makes it where he didn't just become a god. It's kind of cool seeing that journey, or beginning to see that journey.
I did want to circle back to some of the things you were saying, Stephen, because I think you do bring up some valid points. I have a feeling that kind of what you're getting at with your problem with Daima has a lot to do with the format of Daima. GT was a series that was being made week to week, so they could spend a couple episodes on on just like, here's this new world, here's the problem present. We can give you more detail to get you to like really care. Whereas Daima, because it is, I want to say it's going to be like 24 episodes or something. It's not going to be like like, oh, week to week for the next 5 years or whatever. It's going to be week to week for the next like couple months. Because of that, they have to be a lot more efficient in their storytelling. But I can see what you're saying, Stephen, about how that could like come at the cost of like, okay, it's efficient, but it also is not giving us the same impact, because like we only have to get very brief snapshots of like, these people are oppressed. Here are the problems.
Oh, JR
And
left. Sorry,
he
keep
was
going.
he was so mad about me talking about the format.
Yeah, he's throwing up right now.
Yeah, he's just raging. But so I think that's kind of the issue that you're getting at here, is that Daima isn't taking as much time to set up these conflicts. So I can see what you're saying. It's actually a problem I have with some adaptations of anime where they're trying to be so efficient in terms of conveying plot that they're missing out on tone. I think that's a big problem. Not to go off too much on a tangent, I think that's a big problem with the Cowboy Bebop live action adaptation is it doesn't take the time to get the original series' tone. But to circle back to Dragon Ball, I could see what you're saying here that it's efficient at the cost of impact.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair.
Yeah, and kind of just to circle back to to add on to that, I think it kind of goes into something I was talking about too, is just how because it's an overarching plan rather than a weekly series of like, okay, let's go on this adventure and see where it leads, says the writers of one of the biggest franchises in the world, which is learning is more and more common than we'd like to accept. Thank you, Star Wars. But with this, it's more of a slow burn. Like we're not getting that payoff right away, but I'm confident that we'll be getting that payoff by the time that the final 24th episode airs, which is something I've heard too, and I'm kind of happy with. I'm glad that we're not getting, or the animators aren't being forced to like, okay, well, we have possibly hundreds of episodes ahead of us, so let's figure out how to efficiently do this with it also being cool and epic. And I think this episode too, like, just one thing that everyone has already said to death, but we just need to bring up because we haven't really talked on the podcast lately, is just how good Daima looks. Like the action choreography, like it's one of those things where I think back to like watching the final episodes of Dragon Ball Super and just being like, man, this stuff is so cool. Oh my God, how could it get any cooler? And then like you watch something that's animated a lot differently and you realize that like a lot of the coolest moments of Dragon Ball Super were literally just like static characters and animations of fists, flurries that you can't see what they're doing. It's just their blurs of their fists doing things. It's like, oh, okay. Now that we're seeing animation where Goku's ducking between the legs and hitting behind the back of the head with the power pole, and all while these other guys are moving in the background, and it's just so much more dynamic and enjoyable to like dissect. And again, I loved Dragon Ball Super, and I still love to watch those fight scenes hundreds of times over and over again. But it's just nice to not have something that feels like it's trying to be as efficient and rushed as possible.
About the fighting. Oh no, go ahead. No, go ahead, Evan.
I was just gonna say I agree completely. The show looks really, really nice. I mean, some of this stuff it legitimately feels like it's like cinematic. It feels like this is movie quality animation, and I'm really glad that they were able to do that because Dragon Ball is the biggest anime and manga franchise, or one of the biggest anime and manga franchises in the world. And so you look at those first couple, that first couple episodes or whatever of Super, and you're like, why didn't you do more money out of that?
Right.
Why didn't you throw more? This is so big. How did you not have the budget?
Well, especially with the movie coming out and then them not doing the series until like a couple years later. It's just like, did you guys like, oh crap, this is due next week. We got to do this.
Right. So yeah, no, I agree completely. Show consistently looks gorgeous, and again, I think you can see a lot more of Toriyama's recent style, or not recent, but his style post like 2000 or whatever, where the characters are a lot thinner and a lot more kind of reedy than they were in like Dragon Ball's heyday.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been talking Daima for about half an hour. That's about all I had to say on the newest episode and whatnot. Any final thoughts on Daima before we transition into some DanDaDan anime chat?
I guess the one thing I will talk about, and again, it's probably I'm just nitpicking. Like, but one of the things that I got really excited about early on when they went on to the third demon world was like the fact that the atmosphere was all heavy. like, and because of that, Goku's fighting could possibly be affected by it. I mean, that's what I was looking forward to, but it seems like that nothing has really come of it. It's like kind of forgotten. That's actually like a big. It was just like such an exciting thing because usually, like, there hasn't really been something like that. In the series where like another planet is actually going to affect the way that you fight. I mean, like we've had something sort of like that with gravity, but that's mostly been for training where like the heavier gravity is going to make you stronger when you train. But like here where it's like, oh man, because of the atmosphere, you can't fly really fast. You're going to be a lot slower. So it's like, oh man, Goku's going to actually have to like try really hard. And then all of a sudden he's fighting and he's not having a problem. And then he goes Super Saiyan. I'm actually kind of really upset about that. He goes Super Saiyan, so now he can go super. Like, so now I'm not like that scared that he's fighting against these Tamagotchis. I'm not going to start calling it Tamagotchis because that's actually pretty hilarious. Because it's like oh man, it's like now he can transform into Super Saiyan and he's not having problems with fighting on this planet. It's like it's not going to be a big deal. I don't know. Like that's another problem I'm having with it.
Yeah, I could see how that could cut the tension. I think it again comes down to efficient storytelling because like the reason that they set up the gravity is explicitly to say like, well, why wouldn't Goku just fly everywhere?
Yeah. Which was cool. I love that. And I just heard a dog.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, my puppy Akira just woke up. She's licking. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just like the limiters put on Goku so he doesn't just. So then there is some tension, but the whole idea that he, just within a couple episodes, is like, oh, okay, I think I got the hang of this. It's like, oh, okay, well, now we just have the tension of him being a child. So how limiting are his powers? And I thought this latest episode did a great job of like, oh crap, are we gonna get to see the Tamagotchi fight? And I kept on thinking, oh no, it's going to stop now. Oh, it's going to stop now. And then as soon as he, got the power pole and battle position ready, and it's like, okay, we're getting that cliffhanger. That was a perfect cliffhanger there. But I think next week we'll kind of see, hopefully we get to see Goku push to his limit on what little Goku can do. But yeah, I'm excited to watch new Dragon Ball, and we'll be talking more Dragon Ball on the next podcast for sure. But I think we'll go ahead and move into DanDaDan chat. And a lot of us here have not read the manga. Some of us have read a little bit more than others, but we're going to keep this on just strictly anime chat, so no worries about getting the manga spoiled. But oh man, like this series had been hyped up for me since we were doing our past podcast, Mega Manga Mondays. I had a lot of people recommend it to me, and I absolutely see why. And we're only like 8 episodes in, and it's so charming. I love all the characters and how they all feel like real characters, not just cardboard cutouts of stereotypes. And also just the way that the series has been using tropes, but at the same time, it's kind of a new way to introduce or use those tropes. Sometimes there's been one or two of just like, okay, that kind of soured it for me. Like, we'll definitely talk about the newest episode, but I had a big problem with the first episode. And it's just probably how the manga started, but it's Japan's, and this is going to get into some darker subject material, but it's just the way that Japan looks at like sexual violence. Like the first episode, she almost gets like assaulted, like, and it's all played as a gag, and the whole next day episode and everything's just like, oh man, she's like, oh man, that was crazy, right? And it's like, I think if that
really
happened to a real person, then they would probably be a lot more traumatized, because that was like, she almost got, I don't want to use the word, but like she got almost like sexually assaulted by these aliens, and it all just got played as a joke. And I thought that was, oh man, I've heard so many good things about the show. I'd like to watch it with my wife because we like to watch anime together. but I ended up having her watch, I think, the 5th episode first with me instead, which was the one where it was just started with them both going back to class after they took care of Turbo Granny and just their super adorable, awkward, like, oh man, I just want to talk to her. Oh, I just want to talk to him. All right, well, I'm going to check the cafeteria. Oh, I'm going to go check this. And they just narrowly missing each other the whole time. I loved that. And had her watch that, and she really liked it too. And it's just, I don't know, the first episode, that whole thing kind of like threw a wrench in it from being like really easy to recommend to people, just because we take that so much more seriously over here. And I think that that's right to take that seriously.
That's actually pretty interesting because I mean, so I'm someone who has just read the manga. I haven't watched the anime yet, and I'm actually kind of surprised to hear that because I remember when I read the manga, it was actually came across as really messed up. I don't remember it being a joke, so I'm almost wondering like maybe it was just the way that I read it, and maybe that's why adaptations can mess things up because I mean I really don't think that that was the intention of it being a joke because I remember like it just the way that I haven't read it in a while so I forgot his name but like the mangaka's his insane attention to detail with drawing like it's actually one of the reasons why I'm not watching it is because the manga itself like the drawings are absolutely just stunning and just the fact that has done that on a weekly basis and a lot of times doing like multiple like 2-panel shots like it is very artistic and I really feel like that you can't really capture that in anime form but like the way that I'm remembering it I could be misremembering it but when I read it in the manga just the just how he shaded the whole situation of when she was in that situation, when Momo was in that situation, was very like I remember the pronounced amount of black made it very sinister. So I mean, again, I would have to read the manga again, but I remember when I was reading it, I didn't feel like that it was made into a joke. So maybe that's just an adaptation thing, or maybe it was just how I read it. But that's kind of interesting that hearing that.
Yeah, no, I had a very similar thought to you, Jason, of like, oh, my wife would love no, no. But so I actually have I think I have like the first 3 volumes in paperback. So I will have to go back and read that because I would be very interested to see the differences in the adaptation. And I think adaptation differences really brings up for me we'll see what happens with the differences between those 2 scenes because that could be a big deal, but I am very glad that Science Saru was the one to pick this up because like this like they just bring so much personality, so much energy to every single episode. Like Science Saru is legitimately one of the best studios in my opinion working in anime. And I know some people were like, "Ah, their style's kind of weird. How are they going to do DanDaDan justice?" And it's like, nah, they were 100% right. They understood the assignment, they understood the material. They got its like uniquely weird energy. So I'm very happy to see the anime being so well received because it's Science Saru is has long been one of my favorites, and so to see one of their animes like pop off so hard and get into like just like it's become to the point where I'm seeing people who aren't big anime fans like making memes about it, and that's how I know like, oh, this is a major hit. Like I saw that with Demon Slayer, My Hero, Chainsaw Man, um, and even other like really big anime that are really big with fans. Like I don't necessarily see that for like Kaiju Number 8 had a lot of fans, a lot of people really loved it, but I don't necessarily see this same like huge overwhelming swell of support that I'm seeing for DanDaDan. So it's just really great to see this such weird, unique series with such great animation get so well received by the community and even beyond the community. So yeah.
I'm actually really curious, Evan, because you might know this, because I know that you're saying you're more familiar with the studio and that sort of thing. Do you know what what the explanation is between like why in the manga the series is one word and it's now 3 words, and like is there a reason for that? Like have they explained that? Like I think it's kind of weird, but
No, but I do know that it caused a bit of headache for us at Screen Rant because I was explicitly told by I think it was like G Kids was releasing the first 3 episodes as like a cinematic thing.
Mm.
Um, we had written something up about it that had it as one word, and G Kids wrote us and was like, "Hey, when it's the anime, it's 3 words." And I was like, "Okay." And so I made sure all of
Huh.
our articles about the anime going forward were 3 words. Um, and then I looked into the search, and it turns out like, oh, a lot more people are searching for it as one word rather than 3. And so that's when we changed it back to one word. I have no clue why they would make that change. I also don't know what the title means. I talked to the people at not that they would know because they're not the manga's creators, but I talked to the people at Crunchyroll about some of their theories, and they just kind of shrugged. One guy actually had a really interesting theory that I liked. That so the title is actually pronounced DanDaDan, and
Hmm.
he thought the title might be a reference to like Godzilla's theme, kind of hinting at the presence of pretty minor spoiler at the presence of kaiju
Yeah.
later on, because like Godzilla's theme is like don da don, you know that.
That's cool. I like that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Which to bring that back around, I loved the Shin Godzilla reference in the newest episode. Like
Yeah.
that little lizard like popped around the corner, and they do the whole like tail glowing up as it slowly scales up to its as its neck, and the concentrates the laser, and all that. That was as soon as it like started breathing into the ground, I was like, "Oh, is he? Oh, they're doing it. This is so cool." But
Unfortunately, something came up, and I do have to go. It's been very fun talking with all you, and I hope you guys have a good rest of the podcast.
thanks, Evan. It's good to have you, man.
Well,
Yep.
and actually, just yeah, have a good one, Evan. Yeah, actually, but just in response to what Evan just said, that's interesting because it reminded me of an earlier Shonen Jump series, one of the many that got axed very early on. It was I had to look at when Evan was chatting. I had to look it up really quick because I hadn't written about it in a while. But it was called Dororon. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Dororon. So
Oh yeah.
Doron and then space Dororon. And what was really cool, they actually explained it earlier on. Like, well, they didn't explain it, but people who paid attention figured it out. But basically, it's like an onomatopoeia, like where it's like anyone who was the I'm forgetting like the monster names, but anyone who was a monster in that world, like their aura made that sound. So whenever they appeared, the words Doran, Doran would show up. So it was the sound of that the demons made. So would be interesting if that's what DanDaDan is doing. But I do like what Evan was saying, that it could be that reference to kaiju and Godzilla. That's very interesting.
Right. I don't know if the name of DanDaDan will carry as much narrative weight as like One Piece for its
yeah,
title,
like
but we'll
seems
see.
to be very silly. He's a silly guy.
Yeah, and that's kind of that's kind of why I was surprised to hear like you haven't checked out the anime yet because of the visuals, and I don't know. I think Studio Saru has, at least from everything I've seen, and I definitely have not seen nearly as much of their work as it sounds like Evan did. But I think it's beautiful, especially with the whole aspect of like them doing a seasonal anime rather than a weekly anime. They have the time to really make it look fantastic and direct it beautifully, especially that last week's episode with the ballerina scene and the flashback and all of that was just very emotionally well done, emotionally resonant, and incredibly well directed and animated. And its visuals have definitely not disappointed me. And I've seen some amazing panels from DanDaDan so far, but Studio Saru seems to be kind of the weird studio, so it seems like a perfect fit for DanDaDan.
I think I shouldn't have said that earlier. That was the reason why I wasn't watching it. Like I think that I should have said something along the lines of that. I wouldn't say that it's better, but it would be hard to capture it just because like the creator is just his attention to detail is so insane, like, and when he's only done it in a week, it's mostly because, and it's my own personal failing, like for some reason whenever I read a manga, I never feel compelled to watch it when it's animated. It's very annoying and I can't seem to overcome it. So that's actually one of the reasons why. It's just like, yeah, I already read that. I don't know. Like, I mean, if it's like a different series, I mean, like Berserk. I mean, that will be something that I'll always watch, even if
that's what I keep thinking of when you're like, oh, I don't know, the manga is so good. I have a hard time watching it, and it's like, I'm thinking of Berserk the whole time you're saying.
I definitely have exceptions to the rule. Yeah, no, it has to be, I guess, just mean a lot more to me. I don't know, but
that makes sense.
Yeah, so there's always exceptions, but it is actually something is very annoying to me, and like I just can't get over it. And it's like, it's a personal failing. Why? But oh well.
Yeah. But I think this latest episode was really good too. That last episode 7, I think is what it was probably the best episode the series has done so far. And this one,
what happens in it? What is it?
So it was the whole like backstory of there's like the pink-haired girl.
Era.
Yeah, and it was kind of her beginning, and
she's
the
already
whole
there. Wow.
Yeah, well, it introduced her and the cursed spirit that had been like haunting her, and they did the whole backstory revealing that cursed spirit was like a single mother just trying her best to provide for her little girl and teach her dance lessons, and there's like a violent situation that happens where a bunch of dudes like show up and they like brutalize the mom and steal and kidnap the daughter in front of her, and they just intersplice it back and forth between the situation going on with I want to say Aurora, but I know that's not her name.
Isn't it Era? Is it like Era?
It might be Era. I'm not sure how to say it in English. Right. But yeah, it was incredibly well done, and the music score and everything. Like, if you want to, especially if you've already read quite a bit and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to watch this, just try that episode, and I'm anxious to hear your thoughts on it. But
well, I mean, there's also the fact that I'm married and I'm scared that I'm going to fall in love with Momo, so I probably should stay away from it. No, but no, it's yeah, no, it's what's interesting, like where you are. Actually, my favorite thing hasn't happened yet, so you have a lot of good stuff is coming down the road. Like it's gonna get better. But
yeah, this episode kind of just jumped into the next thing already, where Ara and Momo and Ken, or Otaku-kan, or however you want to say his name, are all like eating together, and the tension between the two girls is starting to build, and they reclaimed one of his golden balls and successfully baseballed it back into his crotchal area. It's just hilarious. Like, and I've been really enjoying watching it in Japanese too, because the same voice actor of Luffy is the Turbo Granny. So
I was just about to bring that up.
It is
that
perfect.
is the perfect voice actor for that. That is.
It's really good, especially when she's like threatening them consistently, because I just keep on hearing inklings of Luffy's voice, and the voice of Zoro, the like alien guys who all look the same too. So it's been really interesting hearing those voices come out. But Merlyn, I would love to hear your thoughts on what your interpretation of DanDaDan is so far.
Well, I haven't read the manga. It's really tempting, and I don't think I'd have the same problem Steven does because I have a horrible memory, so I tend to just forget. And when the episode comes along, I'm like, oh yeah, that happens in this episode.
That's funny.
Um, so yeah, I've been enjoying it. It's not the kind of anime I usually go for, but
Mm.
yeah, it's really appealing. And yeah, my favorite part is Turbo Granny, and the fact that she's voiced by Mayumi Tanaka is just the cherry on top. Like every time Turbo Granny has a line, all I can picture is Luffy.
Yeah,
That's
Luffy on
fun.
his worst days, maybe. Where he's
Yeah,
this is like hangry Luffy consistently, like threatening everybody and just it's been a great watch so far. And who knows, once the season ends, I might be tempted to pick up the manga. But yeah, just like animation wise and everything, voice acting clearly, like it's just hitting all the right notes for me. Um, it's and I kind of talked about it earlier too, just on how much it relies on some of the tropes, like the trope of like all the girls seemingly falling for Ken is a little annoying, but it's obviously an effective narrative tool to build tension
I
between
mean
characters.
he is a cute little nerd. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Wait, um who's part of the party right now? I
Uh,
don't
so
know.
so so far, I mean, we've got the opening credits, so we know that there's
Oh, so Gigi's
some
not there yet? Oh, okay.
yeah, we have not met that person. I don't know who that is
Oh,
yet. So,
I
but
love him.
where
He is the
where the
best.
episode
He is the
just
best.
ended.
He's the best. Okay, I'm very
Okay.
excited. I might just start watching it just because of him, because he's hilarious.
Okay. Well, the episode ended with them being like trapped in some weird realm. And as I said earlier, like the lizard showed up with the Godzilla laser and everything. It was super cool. But it ended with the aliens showing up again and almost taking Ken's banana.
Yeah.
I'm loving that, by the way. And and then Ara like transforms for the first time, and
Cool.
the episode ended with how awesome her transformation looks, and we got to find out what it does next episode. So that's where we're currently at in the anime.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just say that the one thing that the only problem I had with it, and one of the reasons why I stopped reading it, and I should probably just keep going. Um, and you've probably noticed it too, like your last comment. It it jumps around quite a bit. Like after an arc ends, it's like boom, switch, next story. That's my only, like, that was always very jarring for me. Um, that it was switched very quickly, and it keeps doing that. But that's my only problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it is very fast paced,
It
and
is,
I
yeah.
think that that's something that has become more and more common, just with as we were saying earlier, like Shonen Jump, or I think Marilyn was saying it is just like if it's not hyped, it's
Yeah.
failing. Like
No,
so,
that is very true. Like, yeah, there was this one series, and I forgot what it's called. It has like a Chinese name, and it is on Shonen Jump. I don't know if it's still going, but I remember it was basically following in Naruto's footsteps. Like it was like every single story. It was basically the same thing, but it was like streamlined to an insane degree. So it's like, oh yeah, this happened, and then this happened, and this happened in Naruto. But like in Naruto, it would take like 50 chapters, and it did it in like 5. So
yeah.
yeah, it's just like, oh my goodness gracious, slow down.
Yeah, right. It's making me feel old with how fast all these newfangled mangas and anime
TikTok,
going.
man. We're in a TikTok world. Like, gimme.
Yeah, I need something cool to happen right now. Um, but yeah, it sounds like we're all enjoying Dan. Definitely check out the anime, Steven. But
You will
yeah,
you will love the opening especially. The opening
It's so
theme is
good.
amazing. We have what 8 episodes out, so I've had that thing on repeat for like 8 weeks now.
I also think the outro is great. Like it's very rare for me when like both an intro and outro are unskippable for me. And this is one of those series that's been doing it. And speaking of series with great intros, just quick shout out. Well, actually, I'll probably say that to the end. We'll give our recommendations and all that stuff. Oh no, Steven might
Oh.
jump back in. But yeah, I that was about all I had to say about DanDaDan. Did you have any other thoughts on the anime, Merlyn?
Not really. I guess yeah, I'm excited to see what happens next. I did love Ira's transformation. I think she sort of matches with Okarun, and I'm seeing the love triangle there, but we all know he ends up with Momo.
Oh yeah, it seems perfectly set up where and that's kind of the thing too, is once we've once we've grown up a little bit and seen more than a few of these types of shows, you're like, okay, well, they're obviously going to wind up together, because then it would be like Game of Thrones if they didn't. It would just be incredibly missed opportunities and stuff like that, and nobody wants that. But I have received messages from Evan, Steven, and JR. It sounds like they all had some stuff come up, so I think now is probably a great time to jump into some One Piece. Are you still a fan of One Piece, Marilyn?
I am. It's a hard time to be a One Piece fan, but I'm holding on.
know. I know. I feel like a few weeks ago, when we were kind of on the point where the news came out that Egghead Anime was going to be taking a break, and they were going to be re-editing and kind of not fully reanimating, but giving a fresh coat of paint at least on the Fishman Man Island arc. I was a little worried, but kind of excited. Just the whole idea of kind of Dragon Ball Kaiing, which, if you're not familiar with that term, they essentially, took all of Dragon Ball Z's almost 300 episodes and condensed them into about 170 episodes, and kind of remastered it. And that's how a lot of people got into Dragon Ball Z, was by enjoying that. Because Dragon Ball Z, if you go back and watch the anime, it has some horrendous pacing at a lot of the time, where they'll just be in the middle of a fight, and then they'll cut over to like, oh, these characters are in a ship flying from the city to the other city, and they laugh at each other, and then we cut back to the action over there. It's like, that didn't move the plot at all. That didn't help anything. This is frustrating. The series we grew up with are not as fantastic as we remember. I'm sorry to break that to some people, but let me know in the comments how furious you are to hear that. But with One Piece, I've only watched the first episode of this kind of remaster of Fishman Island, and I still couldn't help but being disappointed. Like, definitely seeing like the screenshots comparison of what it looks like now versus what it used to look like. It does look better, sure, but they're even cutting, like, the editing is kind of choppy, unnecessarily so. Like, I loved,
Yeah,
in
I
the
did see a
story when
lot
all
of
the
complaints about that, and
okay, I'm
I
not alone.
watched the episode extra closely, and there are quite a few like awkward cuts at the beginning of the episode. Right when we're checking in with each Straw Hat, I feel like they've just cut out like the padding in between. For example, when we cut to Brook, we cut directly to Brook. We don't see the people standing in line to enter his concert, or the people actually cheering at the stadium before he can go on stage. Instead, we go like straight to him backstage. We don't get the conversation with his manager, um, with
Oh yeah,
who is it?
that was hilarious. I
Someone
remember that being
else.
hilarious.
Yeah, there's like none of the like establishing shots of Sabaody, of like the Ferris wheel, or like the island from a distance. Like, so that's the kind of stuff they've like cut out. Um, and yeah, it's weird how how you immediately like feel the absence of that kind of stuff. Um, Other than that, I could live with that. Like it wasn't that bad. Um, the only like egregious one I could say is when Nami gets into the fight with the fake Straw Hats.
Yeah.
They cut away, and they don't include the part where fake Robin comes up to Nami and like threatens her. And so the next time we cut back to Nami, like fake Robin is suddenly just next to her with a gun to her head. So
Oh
that
well,
was
even that
that was
was
the worst one. Yeah.
yeah, that was exactly what I was going to bring up too, because that was kind of the moment where I was like, oh, that's just like bad editing, because it was like literally that, and then Usopp shows up, and then we cut to like
Yeah.
Usopp just being like, hey, that's not cool, and then the next time we cut to it, fake Robin is like in the mouth of a giant plant, like up, being suspended up above, and it's like we didn't see any of that. It's just like it just feels so like haphazardly cut together almost, and it's I don't know. It's just like, is this what we wanted? Like, is this what you guys need to do? Like, there's nothing else we could have
I
done.
think I don't think they had a choice because I did look into it a bit. I did look into it in like a more detail, and from when the Egghead arc went on break until when it's coming back, like like let's say the beginning of April, there's exactly 22 weeks. So they gotta fit the entire Fishman Island saga into 22 episodes.
Wow.
So that's it's 57 or 60 something episodes in the original. So it comes up to about like 2.5 episodes of the original into the new re-edition at least.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just it's odd, and that totally makes sense. I mean, that probably means that that's not going to be the first and only awkward cut that we're going to see.
It's probably not, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I back in the day when this used to happen, they just used to do a filler arc, and I feel like now, especially after releasing that fan letter episode, which I specifically had to take the Screen Rant and write a review after that came out, because that was probably the best like anime film I've seen in a long time. Like, and just how well it standed by itself and how well it was animated. I know that it is unrealistic and would be unfair to ask them to do like an entire filler arc that is going to look and be as well directed as that was. But I feel like now more than ever, I would love to see like a One Piece filler arc. Like they could have adapted like a cover story. They could have come up with, I don't know, there's been some terrible One Piece filler arcs that have been just a few
I
episodes
honestly
long.
wouldn't mind an anime original. We haven't had a
Yeah.
good anime original filler arc since um I want to say since G8.
Yeah, I think I did just, One Piece filler arcs, and the G8 stands on many people's list as like one of the greatest filler arcs of anime maybe ever, just on how well it implements the world, and without having to move the story forward, but at the same time it accentuates all the dynamics that we've already enjoyed. And I just feel like One Piece should have done that instead of this Fishman remaster. Um, but at the same time, I also love the idea of them remastering other arcs. Like, I think Dressrosa needs it more than
I
Fishman
was
Island
about to
needed it.
say the same thing. I wish they'd done Dressrosa instead, because that's the one where the animation gets the roughest. And it's such a
Yeah,
good arc, but the animation is it's just so bad in certain moments. Oh.
yeah, that was actually the breaking point for me, because I was an anime only for a very long time, and then Dressrosa hit, and I was like, I'm just not enjoying this. Like, it just I think it's a very contentious arc for many reasons, and I kind of agree with a lot of those reasons. I think it just introduced way too many characters way too quickly, and it was really hard to care about a lot of the things that was going on, because it just felt like all padding for the most part to prevent Luffy and Doflamingo from fighting. Like, it just felt like a lot of that was just put in the way just for that, and it didn't. Not a lot of it had much narrative impact, in my opinion. Except for the Senior Pink. I want a whole filler arc of Senior Pink. Why couldn't we got that? But enough complaining about this. I think it's an interesting idea to go back and do it like this, but it also just makes me more excited for the One Piece remake series to happen. I think a fantastic remake can remove the padding, but at the same time accentuate, especially with the gift of foresight and knowing where the series is going. They can take moments that didn't get nearly enough attention and give them more attention, and cut out stuff that was just there just to fill time. So I'm very curious to see what they end up doing with the remake, whenever that
I
comes
feel
out.
like the Fishman Island re-edition is like the original is a bit too slow paced. This one is a bit too fast, and I
Mm.
feel now that the remake by Wit Studio might be able to land that middle ground. Like they know exactly what not to do because of
Yeah.
the Fishman Island remaster.
Yeah, and I think with the increased attention that the franchise has gotten, especially thanks to the live action series, they're being incredibly careful while also generous, I hope, with the budget and the time that they're getting to create it. So I have a lot of high hopes for it. I think it will. And there's been some complaints that, if that exists, then why would people go back and watch the old anime? It's like, I don't feel like it's erasing the old series, or you can still go back and enjoy that. And that's what's going to end up happening is the remake's going to come out. It'll do its, 12 to 24 episodes, however long they do it, and to take a
They
break to
did
make
say
more.
that they're in for the long run with the
Oh, sure.
remake. So
Yeah, and
it would
I'm
be really
hoping.
funny if it ended up with like 3 different versions of the Fishman Island arc.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to be getting that. I mean, I'm all for them, remaking the whole manga essentially, but I'm hoping that it's not a weekly series, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm hoping that they'll do the seasonal model for it, kind of like My Hero Academia, which I think My Hero Academia's pacing for its anime release has been perfect. Doing 24 episodes a year, that's 6 months working on it, 6 months of it airing, is really good. But I am unfamiliar with the production side of that also, so that might also be unrealistic for something the size of One Piece. But I would much prefer that compared to what Demon Slayer is doing, where they release like 6 episodes that are just an extended version of the movie that they released. And I think Demon Slayer has figured out how to make the most money out of a beloved series as possible with the minimal amount of episodes. And I don't want to say work, because clearly Demon Slayer is one of the most beautiful series to ever be drawn. But anyway, One Piece. I anxious to see how that all comes together. I'm pretty disappointed with the Fishman stuff. But kind of moving on to the manga a little bit. Before we talk about the current release schedule and delays of the manga, would love to talk about just the latest chapter, and kind of, because we haven't talked about a lot of them finally landing on Elbath and getting out of their confinement, and Luffy meeting Loki. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on all of that.
Well, for me, the highlight of the latest chapter was Robin's haircut. I was
Oh,
over the moon. Like I love her Miss All Sunday
yeah.
design, and I've been waiting for them to bring that back. I love all of her outfits from the pre-time skip, and I'm hoping now that she has the hair, we're gonna get the Wild West outfits back, like the
Yeah.
fur and the cowboy boots and the hat. Mm. It would
I
be perfect.
completely agree. And I think it's funny because I was kind of skimming over the chapter before we started recording, and I was like, okay, well, one of my favorite bits is probably Robin's haircut, but I don't know if I want to jot that down because I feel like there should be bigger things to talk about it. But man, that does look so good, and it also
It
just
is.
kind of
It's the highlight.
yeah.
And a lot of
Well,
people were really excited about it.
yeah. I mean, Robin is probably my favorite character. What? Well, I don't. It's tough, but Robin is my favorite female character in One Piece. I think she's just so compelling and interesting, and just the whole idea of like we can cut their hair is just so like weird anime. Like we don't do that in anime because now we have to change their hairstyle, and every animator has to get used to that now, and it's
They
just something
change up the models and everything. Yeah.
yeah. But they couldn't have done it with a better character, and of course, her meeting with Saul is incredibly anticipated. But with that last panel saying like, "Oh no, Saul's fallen, and he can't get up" or something, it's like, okay, well, we have to prolong that meeting, of course, because we're gonna have to because we've been waiting for it for so long. But I love her so much, and I am just so excited to see her, like seeing Saul again. Like she's been through hell, and just his laugh and his memory has like kept her going a lot of this through a lot of the hardship. And oh boy, it's going to be an emotional reunion. Hopefully we get it. I'm really hoping that Saul doesn't like, oh, he's fallen and he fell down some stairs. Oh no, not stairs again. How many times are we going to let stairs take our loved ones in One Piece?
Oh my god, I didn't get what you were referring to for a second, and then I remembered. Oh my god, Kuina.
Yeah, exactly. There's a YouTuber I really like, Grandline. They've designated this just like giving stairs the D moniker because it's so notorious. Like, yeah, I'm really enjoying where Elba is going. I thought the whole starting them in the castle thing was kind of an odd start, but it was a way to kind of break them up and make the giant characters even more quirky. But I think Loki kind of presents like a big question mark for the series on where it could go. I think it almost seems too on the nose that he's going to be like the big bad villain of this arc. I almost feel like it's a misdirection for something. But this latest chapter of him saying, if you free me, I might be able to get some information on Shanks. So I mean, clearly that's got to happen. But one theory that I really enjoyed too is that Loki believes he has the Nika fruit, but in actuality, he has the real Gum Gum fruit.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, there's one theory that I really like that I'm hoping comes together, but then I think that there was something when we were breaking down that Luffy's fruit is not the Gum Gum fruit. I think that somebody said like, oh, there's never been any record of any Gum Gum fruit ever existing.
I think that was Vegapunk, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So that theory might be totally not right, but we'll see. I'm very curious, of course, to see where they go with Loki's character. I thought at first it seemed like he might be just misunderstood.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that him and Luffy end up actually getting along because if Loki is supposed to be as mischievous as his Norse counterpart, then I feel like him and Luffy would really get along. Especially with the whole Nika thing and being very, Nika's very playful, and I feel like he could get along with Loki. They could get up to a lot of silly stuff together.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the thought of like, could this guy be the next crewmate? But they'd have to maybe make the Sunny a little bit bigger. I'm not sure where it's going to go. Obviously, I think there's so many things that are possibly getting ready to converge on Elbaf. I wonder like if Emu's focus is still going to be to capture Joy Boy, if that's going to bring all the remnants of the world government from Egghead and everything else to Elbaf. There's the possibility that Shanks is still on Elbaf with what Loki was saying, even though I would be very surprised if that's the case. But then we got Blackbeard's faction, like kind of seems like they're setting up to lay siege onto Mary Joie or Fishman Island. Because at this point right now, Blackbeard has information, thanks to Caribou, on 2 ancient weapons, one in Wano and one in Fishman Island, which is Shirahoshi, which is right below Mary Joie. So there's just so many directions the story can go right now, and it's these constant breaks are killing me because it's just such an exciting time for the story right now. But with that being said, I'm really worried about Oda's health. Like apparently one of his recent breaks was to go visit the set of season 2 live action series, which all for that. I want him to be involved in that, so then they stay as close to the source material and the spirit of One Piece as possible. And as somebody who's done some traveling around the world, I know it's very easy to get sick, being trapped in a sardine can in the air with hundreds of other people, dozens of which are coughing all over the place. It's very easy to get sick doing that, but it just, with the amount of breaks that he's been taking lately, I'm wondering if they need to like change the release schedule again. Like, how would you feel if One Piece started doing monthly releases, kind of like Boruto, say like 1 chapter every month, but those chapters are almost 50 to 60 pages? Do you think One Piece is a series that could do that?
I wouldn't mind maybe 1 or 2 chapters that long, once a month, but I feel like the series would just drag on even longer because he has picked up the pace. Like you can tell that he wants to get the series done with. Yeah, but I feel that would like really slow things down because like we saw with Black Clover, it's taking forever.
Yeah,
Black Clover
yeah.
was almost done, but then ever since the shift to Jump Giga, it's been going very slowly.
I think way too slowly. Like I understand that guy also had some health issues pop up. Anybody who's been creating manga for a couple of years seem to have health issues pop up. So I know it's nowhere near as easy as a lot of fans seem to think it is. But only releasing like maybe 6 chapters a year like that, and as you said, like Black Clover was almost done. It had like maybe a half arc left, and now instead of it taking possibly 6 months to finish on a somewhat normal schedule, it is now going to take years to release a dozen chapters. And I find that a really strange model. I mean, even like One Punch Man, that manga has some of the greatest art ever, and that was coming out maybe usually that's also been going on a lot of breaks lately, but that would usually have 1 chapter a month. And even that is a lot more than Black Clover is putting out. I'm not saying I want One Piece to do that. I think if One Piece switched to more of a Boruto model where it was once a month, but the chapter was almost 2 or 3 chapters worth of content, I think that could be doable. But I'm hoping Oda does whatever he needs to do to get the series finished and also be able to live a healthy and enjoyable life after he does it, because he absolutely deserves it. But it's just a really weird time for a One Piece fan because, as you said, like in our private chats, like you usually wake up every Sunday morning and you watch the new episode of One Piece, and it's just
I do. That's something I really look forward to. Like Sunday morning with breakfast, every morning I would watch like the new Egghead episode, and it just feels so weird not having that anymore.
yeah. I mean, for a long time it took me a while to get into One Piece, but I have one of my best buddies has been enjoying it for like almost 10 years, and he's just like, oh man, just keep at it. It gets really good. And I think it was probably on my third or fourth attempt of watching it, it finally clicked for me. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to have this on in the background and kind of enjoy it. And there's some parts of the series where you're like, oh, I'll watch an episode now or then. And there's other times you're like, okay, I just watched 8 episodes and I'm hungry for more. It just became that until I got all caught up. And you get to that point where it just becomes a part of your routine every week. You have that episode to watch in the morning and enjoy a cup of coffee, spoil yourself a little bit of breakfast, and watch the One Piece. And this just feels like it's the first time ever where it's like, oh, we don't really have new episodes, remastering an arc that probably the least liked arc of the whole series. And it's just like a really odd decision, as we were saying earlier. I would have preferred like a filler arc that is just an anime only storyline because it's something new. It doesn't have to look as good as Egghead, which might be the reason that they didn't do that, is because Egghead and Wano have raised the bar so high on what episodes should look like that they're like, okay, well, we can't spit out a filler arc that looks half as good because maybe their expectations are just too high now. But yeah, I don't know. It's probably the weirdest time to be a One Piece fan right now, until the manga, just because both the manga and the anime are so in limbo right now, I guess is the best way to put it.
Mhm. And
But
the weirdest part about the manga break was that Shueisha kept going back and forth about it for some reason. Like we had the whole thing on Manga Plus where they changed the date once and then they changed it back and then they changed it again. And then they put out a statement like 3 days later, but then the official translator, I'm not getting his name, Stephen Paul, he actually made a post the day before Shueisha could release the official statement that there would not be a chapter this week.
mhm.
So,
Yeah,
so
and I
they
don't think I've
knew. So I
ever.
don't know why they why they were so confused about it.
Yeah, right. It makes me wonder like what was going on in the background there,
Mhm.
because I almost wonder if it was one of those things where Oda was just like, oh no, I think I can do it, and they're like, oh, he thinks he can do it, and then he had a conversation with his wife, and she's like, no, you should take care of yourself, and he's like, oh, okay, you're right, and maybe that's what
That
happened.
sounds possible. Yeah.
That sounds like the most realistic. It's the most boring but realistic answer. Um, but I know that Shonen Jump officially says we have a new chapter officially releasing in 9 days. So we're not getting a chapter this week, but next week we'll hopefully be getting one. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. But yeah, I that's about all I had to say about One Piece right now. Hopefully, we'll have some more positive things to say next time we record an episode. I do need to get caught up on the Fishman Island stuff and see if they make
It
some changes
improves.
that I really
Yeah.
enjoyed. I think it's just also so drastically. It's such a drastic difference in quality and direction and all that to the fan letter episode. Like almost like how dare they give us the fan letter episode and then go back to the Island arc. Like it's such a drastic difference in direction and quality that maybe
I'm
that's
interested
why
to
I'm
see.
ultra resistant maybe.
Mhm. I'm interested to see whether they can maybe fix Hody and maybe make him
Hmm.
a little more intimidating, less pathetic. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and it's just again why I think the art is so contentious is, it's the Straw Hats fresh off of their time skip. So how do you create an intimidating villain while at the same time showing how far your characters have come? And I think forcing Luffy to fight underwater and all that was probably the best thing that they could do. Kind of what we were going to earlier about the Daima conversation is you have to come up with so many ways to limit your main character's abilities to be able to keep tension from from being able to maintain tension. So I don't know how they'll be able to change that, because it's not like they're going to be able to add new scenes. It is just kind of cutting out stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot of hope for it, but I'll give it a try. And because I don't have any other new One Piece to watch, so maybe I'll just go back and watch some stuff. But yeah, speaking of like recommendations and stuff like that, I think we can move into that. Unless, did you have any last thoughts on One Piece before we wrap things up?
No, not really. I think we can move on, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank everybody for listening this far. If you've gotten this far, please subscribe, like, comment. Depends on how you're enjoying this podcast, but we'd love to hear your thoughts on either Daima, DanDaDan, or One Piece. Also, let us know if you horribly disagree or adamantly disagree with anything we said. Would be very interested to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please let us know. Also want to hear your favorite parts from the new Daima or DanDaDan episodes. Just anxious to hear your thoughts, really. But I, Jason Hon, write for Screen Rant. You can find a lot of my stuff on there. I'm pretty proud of. I just reviewed the new Batman game on the MetaQuest 3, whatever they call that now. And I'm a big fan of VR games in general, and this one in particularly tells a really good emotional story that's not based on any other comics. All the actors in it like brought it. There's a couple tear jerking scenes in there, and they just managed to do a lot of like really interesting plot twists with characters that you're already well familiar with, but the way that they present it and the way they wrote it, you're consistently like, will they, won't they? And they don't always do what you think they're going to do. And this character is going to be a villain eventually, but they don't turn into a villain this time. But this one does, and this one doesn't. And it's a great time, and you get to punch bad guys, and it's very satisfying. I have a lot. I could talk about that for a while, but go read my review of Batman Arkham Shadow on Screen Rant. I also have a whole list of Zorro's coolest moments coming out pretty soon. I think that's going to be up on Sunday. I had a lot of fun writing that too. I also highly recommend. I just finished and caught up on Kaiju number 8 anime, and obviously DanDaDan. But Kaiju number 8, fantastic series. They did a great job with it. Read the manga. You might have to do that because who knows when season 2 is coming. But we were talking about great anime intros. That has one of my favorite anime intros in a long time. Also up there with Ranking of Kings, which is another series that I am working on. I think I only have a couple episodes left. It's my gym show. I only let myself watch it when I go to the gym. And so you'll unfortunately be hearing how often I'm going to the gym with how caught up I am on Ranking of Kings. And I need to go back to the gym and finish that. But Merlyn, would love to also hear, did you have any plugs or recommendations today?
I do have a list coming up soon on the weirdest designs in One Piece, like the weirdest character designs, and I tried to pick some really niche ones. I think I did leave one of them in the chat recently. Just one of the vice admirals with a stack of chins.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite design admirals because it's just so hard to take him seriously, or any situation seriously he arrives on the scene. But yeah, I would ask what the number one on that list is, but I also don't want you to spoil it. I kind of want to check that out.
I'm still working on it, so it should be up in the next few days, hopefully.
Awesome.
As for recommendations, I do have a manhwa recommendation. I have been reading this one series on Webtoon. It's called Trapped, and it's a psychological thriller with a little sprinkling of romance in there. It's pretty much Twilight, but if Edward and Bella were both psychopaths.
That sounds way more interesting than Twilight already.
It is. It's really interesting, and it starts off with the protagonist who's an ex-convict, and she gets framed for murder by the vampire guy, and then he begins blackmailing her with evidence, and then he uses the blackmail to try and get her to get him more people so that he can feed on. And it's a wild ride from episode 1. I highly recommend it. It's called Trapped, and
Trapped,
it is
okay.
completed with about
Excellent.
200 or so chapters. So yeah, it's a good read.
Okay, and so but it does have an anime out.
It does not, sadly.
Or is it just
It's
a-
only a manhwa so
Oh,
far.
okay. Oh, okay, I gotcha. Excellent. Well, make sure you look up Manhwa Trapped and not the movie starring Josh Hartnett, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. You'll probably be a lot more disappointed with one versus the other. But absolutely. Thanks for your recommendation and your time. We'll go ahead and wrap up this episode of Big Anime Talkies. As I said, please subscribe, like, follow, whichever way you're enjoying this. Would really appreciate some of those numbers. So, but also let us know if there's anything you want us to talk about, any criticisms. We're always welcome to some constructive criticism. Always hope to improve ourselves. But definitely want to thank our guests, the awesome Merlyn D. Souza. We had Evan Mullicane and Stephen Blackburn, and a very quick sidebar with JR. Waugh, I think is how you say his name. But we're all Screen Rant writers. You can find more of our words and our thoughts on the anime section of Screen Rant. We've got a lot of really good stuff coming out on there almost every day. So again, thank you. We'll go ahead and wrap this up. And I, Jason Hon, look forward to the next one. Thank you.